Good afternoon, Guyana, and thank you once again for joining us for another edition of Government in Transition. My name is Hugh, Todd, and this afternoon with us is Attorney at Law, Mr. Charles Ramson. He is also a national candidate for the People's Progressive Party, Civic. Mr. Ramson, good afternoon.
Hi, Hugh. It's a pleasure to be here, and good afternoon to all of our viewers.
Charles, you are pretty well informed on everything that would have happened following the March 2nd election. In summary, can you give us your understanding as to why the Granger administration is still hanging on or clinging on to power, given all that we would have seen over the last several months?
Look, I want to start off by saying, Hugh, that the People's Progressive Party and the supporters of democracy and the supporters of Guyana, the best interests of Guyana, we are not going to be, we're not going to rest until the will of the people is respected in this election. And the efforts being led by our General Secretary, Dr. Jack Deo, I am very confident that at the end of this, the People's Progressive Party will be sworn in as our new government, and Dr. Irfan Ali will be sworn in as our president. So rest assured that we are not going to rest until that happens. And the local supporters and the international supporters of Guyana and just the best interests of the region, I'm very confident that nobody is going to back off until that happens. So David Granger will never get a second term in this country. So I want all of our supporters and the supporters of Guyana in general to know that the riggers and the bullies will not succeed, because we're not going to be bullied. That's number one. Number two, the APNU-AFC, they don't have anything to offer Guyanese excepting for lies and flyers. They have been morally bankrupt. They have been intellectually bankrupt. And there's no surprise now that the revelation is that the country's bankrupt, because it turns out that none of them don't even know how to do maths. So you've asked me why it is that they're hanging on to power. Look, the fact is that a lot of the APNU-AFC persons who hold positions in the government at the moment, or who held positions in the government, they were all non-entities prior to 2015. Nobody knew them. They have never made a distinguished, never had a distinguished career for themselves. The vast majority of them, Guyanese, didn't even know them. They have never they've never become rich or become prosperous on their own. A lot of them were living in rented accommodations. They used to drive old cars. So they don't have a lot to offer Guyanese to lead them into prosperity. On the other hand, the People's Progressive Party does, and our track record has said that. And when you look at our team is filled with successful people who are bright, intelligent, and energetic, and capable of taking on the reins of power so that we rule and govern in the best interest of everyone. They're holding on to power because this is what gives them their own significance. Right? That's number one. But number two, you've also got to understand that they're holding on because they know what they've been doing for the last 5 years. Yeah. We know a lot about the details where government ministers were transferring hundreds of thousands of US dollars from their personal account to the United States of America, some of them even millions of US dollars. We know about all the huge land transfer deals and who was getting kickbacks. And make no mistake about it, Hugh, that when we know about it, there's a lot of other people that know about it too. And when I say a lot of other people, I mean the international community that know about it. And they are conducting their own investigations at the moment. So when you saw Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State for the United States of America, make and instruct his department to start issuing or initiating the sanctions on these individuals who are part of the rigging gang. And they know themselves, we know them. A lot of them have shown themselves to be part of that grouping.
Yes.
When he said that, it's because they have hardcore evidence that not only are they involved in rigging, but that they're involved in widespread corruption that has moved beyond into the international jurisdictions. And that web that they have created is difficult to hide, but it also creates international crimes that they're all going to be persecuted for. So they're holding on, just to answer your question, they're holding on to power because they believe this is their safety, this sanctuary of safety that they can hold on to in Guyana. But the world is so global now that they cannot, it's a situation now where you can run, but you cannot hide. No matter where you go, you are going to be found. No matter if you think that you're in an enclave or some kind of island, you're going to be found. Make no mistake about it. And the capture net is starting to tighten on them, and it's going to enclose all of them very soon.
Yes. Following on from that, Charles, thank you very much for that. We've seen David Granger in over the last few days. He mentioned that he has never claimed victory and that he is going to await GCOM and the GCOM chair to make that pronouncement. And you know, that is a departure from what he would have said previously. Now, we support his last statement because we agree with him that he should rely on the GCOM chair to give that pronouncement, which he said that he will abide by. But we've seen APNU-AFC in that camp, they've been celebrating a lot. So one may want to believe that there's some kind of a disconnect between what David Granger is saying and what is happening in the camp. What's your assessment of that?
David Granger has been part of this rigging operation from the beginning. Make no mistake about it, at least that's my view. And I have every reason to support this. Now, let's go as far back as when he made the appointment of James Patterson. Never in this country's history have we ever had an issue where the appointment of a GCOM chairman had been fraught with so much disagreement and discord in this country. Never in the history have we ever seen that in this country. It has always been a civil affair, where basically the leader of the opposition, as has been happening since maybe the late 80s, early 90s, where the leader of the opposition would have submitted a list of 6 candidates, and the president chooses one of those names of that list of 6 candidates, who becomes the chairman of GCOM. And the chairman of GCOM, as you know, and a lot of people know by now, is that they hold that casting vote. It's supposed to be somebody who is fair and is interested in seeing a fair election, so that that casting vote, where you've got 3 members on one side and you've got 3 members on the other side, that casting vote is the vote that allows the process to be fair. And when you would have seen the leader of the opposition under the APNU-AFC's tenure in government, would have submitted not 1, not 2, but 3 lists. So 18 names he would have submitted to the APNU-AFC. Some of the most distinguished people in our country's history. Some people who have never even shown any kind of political connection or affiliation. And a lot of people who were at some time not very friendly towards the People's Progressive Party. Some of them you would have seen, Hugh, of all ages, of all races, of different gender, different backgrounds altogether, all of whom David Granger would have said, look, all of these are unacceptable to him. And he then, in the middle of the night, hurriedly selects James Patterson, even though everyone was saying, and a lot of the objective people were saying, that you should not do this. We had to take him to court to annul that appointment. And even before the appointment was annulled and the court would have given an indication where they would have gone already, James Patterson would have backdated an order to do a house-to-house registration, which should not have happened because, as you remember, we won the no confidence motion. The no confidence motion, which would have seen an election or should have seen an election that would have happened 3 months, no later than 3 months after the 21st of December, 2018. We then had to take David Granger to court to annul that appointment that he made for James Patterson, and he backdated an order to see that house-to-house registration that happened and that it would have extended their life in government. And then while the house-to-house registration was happening, you would have seen as well they were prioritizing registration of known areas that are supportive of the APNU-AFC camp, while ignoring the People's Progressive areas that are known to be supportive of the People's Progressive Party. We had to do a lot of that work ourselves to get people registered in the claims and objections period. And then coming on to this entire affair, when we saw what would have happened inside of the Ashman's building, when everyone would have seen that Mingo was trying to declare these fraudulent results on the nation, he had basically hid himself away into some kind of cocoon, meanwhile dressing himself up on multiple occasions, Hugh, so that he can get sworn in on what was known by everyone in the country, but also the international community had already spoken on it. The international observers would have spoken on it. They said they have credible evidence of electoral fraud. This man who likes to leave himself out of the fray, puts his hands up and say, I'm not involved. He sees all of this happening and refuses to come down to the location to say, what's really happening here? I'm hearing that Claremont Mingo is attempting to declare fraudulent results. GCOM, I would like to get to the bottom of this before the declaration happens. Instead of doing that, right, as any normal person would be doing who is trying to see that the interest and the will of the people are reflected, he then suits up on a number of occasions to get sworn in. And then when you would have seen that the declaration could have, the recount would have happened, he allows this injunction to be filed and to proceed from people who are members of the PNC and the APNU-AFC camp. Some of them are candidates of the APNU-AFC camp. And he doesn't say, I am making a public statement to say that these persons should not be doing this, and I instruct them as members to withdraw their injunction, to withdraw their court proceedings, because I would like to see a recount. On multiple occasions, David Granger has shown himself to be the man who is involved in the rigging, and not forgetting the Atlanta speech, Hugh, when he would have made a speech to the diaspora in Atlanta, where he said in no uncertain terms, there was a recording which was reported, where he said in no uncertain terms that when he was asked, how is it that the APNU-AFC are going to get re-elected, given their abysmal record already, and given the fact that they have already lost the local government elections, and that there was a lot of disappointment and discontentment as part of their government. He had said in no uncertain terms, it's not Harman saying this, it's not Ramjatan saying this, it's not Moses Nagamutu saying this, it's he himself saying, you've got to ask yourself, how is it that the PNC would have gotten into power in 1964, and how is it that they would have stayed into power? He knew that the intention was to rig this election all along. He knew that he needed to participate in that effort. And this is why when you come in on such a slim margin, and you've seen the writing on the wall that you've got 4,500 votes as your margin of victory, which wasn't even certified anyway, but we'll leave it as it is. 4,500 votes was your margin of victory coming into the election. You lost the local government election in 2016. You lost the local government election in 2018. You lost the no confidence motion. You've got discontentment happening from all around. They knew that they were going to lose the election, and that's why they know that they needed to rig the election. So when he wants to put himself up and say, look, I'm innocent in all of this, and that I'm going to wait for the declaration, why is it that the APNU-AFC would have filed this action at the Court of Appeal, this motion at the Court of Appeal, to try and stop GCOM from making the declaration? There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever, Hugh, that this man is playing an integral role in the rigging of this election, and that he is still hoping that he can get sworn in on fraudulent results and fraudulent declarations, but it will not happen.
Thank you very much, Charles, for that. We want to welcome Mr. Joe Hamilton, who is a national candidate for the People's Progressive Party Civic and a long-standing politician. Welcome, Mr.
Hi, Hugh and Charles. Good afternoon, and viewers. I was having some
nice
GT&T problems here. You know how it goes with the monopoly that we have to really deal with very shortly. Because when you're not getting proper connection that you're paying for, there's nothing else you can do other than wait.
We have to.
And so, gentlemen, I'm with you, viewers. I'm here, and I'm picking up here from where Charles would have left off.
You heard the statement.
Yes, I was listening to Charles all the time.
Right. So we're dealing with the Granges. Yes.
Importantly for young people, and a lot of people who now are political, and what has happened, and you all are far younger than I am, you would know that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, many professional type and even ordinary people, you have a conversation with them and they would say to you, I am not political. I don't want to get involved in politics. I think politics is a dirty game. What has happened, and as painful as it is important and useful for people under 40 or thereabout, because many of the persons who were apolitical today, they're very much political. Yeah. Some of them are even radically political, because it's a recognition that my grandparents and my parents, they were telling me about this beast called PNC. I am living it. Yes. And therefore, I want to continue to live in this country, continue to, for me, those that have children, to bring my children up in this country, and I want to partake in the development of this country. And therefore, no more I can take the posture of sitting on the fence. Yes. And that is what is happening and has happened. And I think the PNC never expected or planned for that. When you had situation during the recount, and gentlemen, you all were closer to it than I would have been, where you have young professionals, lawyers, doctors, whoever, lay their profession aside and said, I will commit and dedicate my days and my hours. I mean, if you look at it from financial terms, they don't have to do it. They could say, oh, I could go up my doctor's clinic. Yes. Or I could go represent client at the court. But, you know, professionals by the hundreds lay aside that, their business, whatever other obligations they had. Yes. Some people deferred traveling. Some people who came in just to work with us for the elections, they determined I will not leave this place until and unless we deal with this fraud that is attempted here by the PNC. And I think there's a movement that is happening in this country that is good for the future of this country, where, as I see it, even coming, if we go back to 2018, no confidence motion that Charles was speaking about, this country, people like to make the point it is split down in the middle by race and ethnicity. That is not it. This country is split down the middle by people who are fighting for democratic culture and people who want to implant a dictatorship. That is the split. Not race, not ethnicity. They attempt to play that up to change narratives. But what it is, and all of us, I mean, you would have, I'm sure you experienced it, Charles, I'm sure you experienced it, and all the viewers. We have lost friends, family, close relatives, associates, schoolmates, people we went to primary school with, and, you know, because what has played out over the last 4 months is that we have recognized this person that I know, that I knew for 30 years, 20 years, we have nothing in common. Because yes, I can't have anything in common with any person, regardless who they are, how close they were to me, who take the position that I have to try to make right wrong or wrong right. I have to try to make truth false or false truth. And some have gone far beyond that, invoking the name of God to make their conversation palatable. That even though we know this is wrong, it is something that is godly. How can something wrong be godly? It is either it's godly or it's ungodly. It can't be both. And so that has galvanized people, energized people. And it is good in my view for the nation and for the development of this country going forward. And that started with the Granger government in place, where many persons who thought he was a good person, I suspect, they determined they will give the PNC a chance under the so-called good man. But they have personally been affected by this government. And that is the fundamental issue. One of the fundamental is that there are hundreds and thousands of persons who were personally affected by this government, one way or the other. And therefore, the struggle is to ensure that we preserve a democratic culture in this country. That is what this struggle is about. You know, as much as we are in the forefront and the party we support in the forefront, it's a recognition beyond that. And I think Charles was making the point earlier also when I was listening, that you had people who never thought they could have or they would have embraced the People's Progressive Party Civic. And they determined that, listen, I have to do this because whatever issue I have with PBP and Freedom House, I have to lay this aside because across the road, there's a danger that would swallow all of us up. And therefore, for us, you know, people like me and you that have African heritage, we fetch our own weight daily. Yes. You know, we fetch our weight and we smile and we go along and we fetch our weight. But with all of that they have done, it did not deter thousands of other people of African ethnic origin to embrace the People's Progressive participate. And that is symbolic and important. That you have people who left their party, the PNC, in government to join and to support the PPP that was out of government. It must mean that we presented to them a better future for themselves and their children. Because who will take that chance? Granger is in already. Jack, they were just talking about wanting to be in an Irfanali and the PPP. And people we know, some of them we have gotten to know as comrades, as excellent activists and stalwarts who were PNC card bearing members, who today we embrace and we hug as brothers and sisters in the PPP family. Because they have shown that they came genuinely and with a commitment to help us to take this country forward. The other thing I need to address is this asinine conversation that Comrade Ramjatan and Moses Nagamutu continues to peddle about Cambridge Analytica and Mercury and data mining. Apparently these guys Google and they saw these phraseologies and they're just using them. They have no competence, they have no skill in the matter, but they're just talking. Yes. And for people like me, when you're listening, you know it is asininity because they're talking about all of this happening in a society that is still paper-based and minimal technology. I mean, how could you be so dumb to say that? But it just shows who these characters are. Now, Comrade Ranjatan and Nagamutu, they have been speaking about this matter and even attempted to have this conversation speaking to overseas journalists out of Guyana, peddling this falsity and this foolishness. The fact is, Ramjatan said that the People's Progressive Party, Civic, we were sending out ads directly to persons, specifically Indo-Guyanese, seeking to stir up race and race hate. For that matter, he suggested that we had ads suggesting that the oil that has arrived, black people can't run it, it is for Indians to run it. I challenge Ramjatan, Katiyus, Nagamutu, any one of the people in the cabal, present any ad to the Guyanese people of that sort. Present it. But the fact is they cannot present such an ad because no such ad exists. But it is trying again to make a racist ethnic conversation. And what people must recognize, the fact that they're utilizing two Kabbalians who are not of African heritage, it's an attempt to have it be made believable. You understand that that is what is happening here? Because I've never heard Armand in all his madness. I have never heard David Patterson in all his lies. I have never heard Kathy Hughes in all her prim and proper self with the Russians suggesting that despicable conversation. But it is deliberate, where Nagamutu and Ramjatan, being of Indian ethnic origin, they're peddling it so that the ordinary African person listening, they would sound more believable than if somebody looking like me in the cabal peddling that. And I just thought I debunked that. Ramjatan and Nagamutu, they have no skill set to speak on the matter about data mining and data collecting and nothing of it. no skill set at all. All they're doing is blowing hot air, trying to create racial, ethnic strife. And I thought I should speak about this matter because it has been going along too long, this foolishness, where they are attempting to suggest that we were, all the ads you would know, and Charles and all the leaders, all the ads that we created, they are public ads. They were made public to the Guyanese people. We didn't have a separate campaign outside of the one that was public. We have a campaign as a public campaign. We have a manifesto that we presented that is a public document for all Guyana, those who voted historically for the PPP, those who were non-traditional voters. It is the same message we had for everybody. So I challenge these pathological liars. Present to the Guyanese people any ads sent to anyone via any data messaging app suggesting anything that speaks to racism, anything that speaks to Indian people more good than black people, anything that speaks to Indian people is better to run the oil and the economy than black people. Present it. And if you can't, and we know you can't, then stop the nonsense, stop the conversation. Yes. Because people who are listening to you know better. They know it's just foolishness you're talking.
Yes.
And therefore, I thought I put that matter out there and once and for all, bring it to rest. You know, Nagamoto is attempting to speak to the issue of ICT, and even his own profession. You know, he's just a bicycle lawyer. He has no competencies. You know, so you have to be unkind to these people, you know. And people, you know, some people might be listening to me and they're saying, Mr. Hamilton, why are you being so unkind? My position is, if you want to plunge the country that I love and I believe in, and I want to stay and live in, I have tried my best to encourage my children to stay here, and I have grandchildren. And so if you want to plunge it into darkness, then I cannot be decent with you. I cannot be diplomatic with you. I have to speak to you the way I must speak, because you're a danger to my country. And that is my position I have taken. And whether you be family, friend, relative, acquaintance, old school mate, that is my position I have taken. I am clear on this matter, that I will not be kind to any person who continue to want to perpetuate a situation where this country, this dear country of ours, can be sanctioned, and where our poor people can become poorer by sanctions. Okay. We should not and we must not tolerate it, and we must frontally speak to these people very unkindly and without no diplomacy.
Thank you, Joe, for being so frank and open. I want to go to Mr. Lowenfield, Chief Elections Officer. The spotlight is on him now. He has assumed the position of hero for the APNU-AFC. I will leave you guys to deal with it. Going with you first, Charles. Give us your analysis of the man who's now in the spotlight, Chief Elections Officer, GCOM.
Yeah, he's in the spotlight for the wrong reasons, because that man is going to get locked up. No matter which way you twist and turn this, he is going to go to prison. And I think much worse is going to happen as it relates to the international community too, as regards to him. So all I will say to him is that you've got a final opportunity here, Keith, to get yourself in order, to disassociate yourself from this entire operation that the APNU-AFC are foolishly advancing, because you would have realized by now that after 4 months, the rigging plan did not succeed. And while it's delaying the inevitable swearing in of the People's Progressive Party and Dr. Irfan Ali as our president, it will not succeed. The rigging plan will not succeed. So let's be clear about the legal principles before I go on to a little bit more and touch on some of what Joe said a moment ago. The chief election officer is not a constitutional officer, as he says. He's merely a statutory officer. He's not a member of the commission. There are only 7 members of the commission. 3 commissioners and 1 chairperson who is also a commissioner. He is subject to the instructions and subordinate to the commission. When he had to go and get his contract renewed, he went cap in hand, going there for his contract to be renewed, not by some act of some kind. It was GCOM, the commission, which had to approve his contract to be renewed. And then we would have, so I have no doubt in my mind that he is both subordinate and subject to the instructions of GCOM. But you would also remember that Vincent Alexander, none other than Vincent Alexander himself, likes to boast about the fact that Gokul Budu had attempted to present some numbers that were not accurate.
Yes.
And it was the commission who had to, right there and then, when he presented that report, alter that report and have him approve it on verifying that this was the accurate result, make the changes in pencil, and go to make the declaration at some event. I think it was at the Pegasus or something in 2011. I'm bringing all of this to the attention of both Keith Lowenfield and the APNU-AFC to let them know that this other plan to rig is not going to succeed. The CCJ has already given its indication of where it's going to go. And you would have seen since the hearing and since Mike Pompeo's publicized speech, that there is a deflation in the camp of the APNU-AFC. There's actually no talk anymore about when they're going to swear in David Granger. You've seen as well that the fanning out affair that was happening without success, even without any success, it was still happening. You see the fanning out affair had stopped. The trucks that were rolling around with the big boombox and playing the music and let the blow, blow, blow type of operation happening and the passing out of flyers, all of that has stopped because they know that they're not going to be able to succeed on this. So when you've got people in your camp, in the APNU-AFC, who occupies the most senior position in government and in their party, where they are known in this country as the dunce, as the rubber stamp, as a mere utensil, as a sanctimonious gangster, as wishy-washy, when they are known in this country by those names, they are not the ones that will lead you to salvation. They've got a big problem, Hugh. They've got a big problem because one of the reasons why you see that nobody wants to buy into their silly arguments about race, and they want to buy into this silly arguments about creating a revolution in the country, because Chinese people don't want to fight anybody. They don't want to go to war with the United States of America. They don't want to go to war with Venezuela. They don't want to go to war with anyone. We just want to get on with our lives. We want to make money. We want to build our family. We want to build our careers. We want to create a good life for ourselves and what we leave behind. Fundamentally, this APNU-AFC camp that is morally and intellectually bankrupt, they've got a big problem facing them that they can't run from, other than the fact that they're not going to be able to succeed to get into government, is that nobody in the world wants to touch them. No, when I say touch them, meaning do business with them. Nobody wants to come close to them to even smell them, right? Because there is this, because they've shown themselves to be this rigging, bullying camp that where sanctions are going to consume them and really destroy them. In order for them to deliver jobs and to be able to have foreign direct investment and to get people excited about business and life and creating a good life for people, it has to come from out and get it happening in the country. If, God forbid, this happens, and it's not going to happen, so I don't really want to discuss it too much, is that they know that nobody from the international community, the international business world, wants to touch them. I can tell you that in the oil community, knowing that Venezuela has parked outside of its borders right now in the sea, tankers with 16 million barrels of oil just waiting there, and their only friend is Iran. Their only friend in this world right now is Iran. Guyana cannot be that way. We don't speak Iranian. We don't speak Chinese. We don't speak North Korean. We don't speak Russian. We speak English. We are oriented in this. We're situated in this Western world. We are oriented in the Western way of doing things. Those are our friends. Those are our trading partners. That's the world that's built on freedom and democratic values and the rule of law and prosperity. Those are the things that we want to align ourselves with. And that's why, Joe, this awakening of this political consciousness, especially amongst young people, it's because we know what we stand for in this country. We know what we're about, and we're willing to fight for it because there are people who are only focused on themselves, and it's a sickness. It's a mental sickness that the APNU-AFC camp that they have, where they are trying to brainwash their supporters, but their supporters are caught in what's called the Stockholm syndrome, where they're being abused, but that they want to stay abused. Some of them want to stay abused. Well, look, a lot of people have come over, as Joe has said, into the People's Progressive Party camp. We welcome everyone here. And that's why we know, and I could endorse what Joe said, that there is no racial messaging coming out of the People's Progressive Party. That is not something that we stand for. That's not something that I stand for. That's certainly something that you and Joe would never stand for. You and everybody in the leadership and the members of the People's Progressive Party, we don't stand for any kind of race dissemination of information. We are a party for everyone, and we want to welcome everyone into the party.
Thank you, Joe. I know you've been around enough to understand the makings and the workings of a lot of these guys. Your assessment of Keith Lowenfield, the Chief Elections Officer.
What I know is that Lowenfield is trapped like Granger. Granger wanted to rig an elections using 70s and 80s methods in 2020. You know, it's like the smartphone is here, the laptop is here, you know, the tablet is here. We're live streaming on Facebook. The television is connected, you know, and therefore, as one Commonwealth observer said to me, he has been in this business 40 years, and he thought the worst attempt to rig he saw was somewhere in North Africa. But he said this Guyana took the cake. Where the guys that were attempting to rig an elections with the cameras rolling, and the television on. He said, you know. So I say that to say Lowenfield is at the same place, because the things he's saying today, people can go back in the archives like many of the newscasts they have done, and they can put it forward to say, you know, listen what this man said about this specific matter not so long ago. Listen what this man said in February 2019 about the authority of the commission, and he can only move and act via instructions of the commission and requests of the commission. Today he's attempting to say that he's empowered to be bigger than the commission, that they have to accept him, whatever he says. The thing is, Lowenfield is just a creature of the commission. And I can go further to say, he's a utensil of the commission that can be disposed of. Yes. So there's thing that, and Charles mentioned earlier, where this man is on contract for 3 years. Last year he came begging for his contract to be renewed. And the chairperson, she voted for, because she said she needed somebody with historical knowledge. And you know, the point is, she didn't say competencies and all that kind of thing, you know. She said she needed someone with historical knowledge. And that is important to note in passing. So he is just a functionary in the secretariat, like all the other people in the secretariat. They come and they go. Some are full-time, some are contractual, and some are part-time when we have elections. And that is how the secretariat functions. So this thing about he has some specific constitutional authority, it is just nonsense, you know. The other important thing to note, gentlemen and viewers, Lowenfield will learn. Lowenfield will learn, and he's learning, that when you run into trouble, Congress, please left you on your own. That's you in the legal fraternity. Have you heard, I mean, any lawyers on the side of PNC, APNU, have any one of them in the last 24, 48 hours come to the defense of Lowenfield? I have not seen any comment.
Not seen any publicly, no.
From any lawyer, whether Basil Lewilly, whether Roysdale Ford, whether all Boston, Marcus, this one like to talk, he always writing, used to be magistrate, what's it, Maxwell? He lives overseas now, Charles. Royston King lawyer, man. Right, Maxwell Edwards, huh? Yes. You understand what is happening here? Lowenfield alone is in this sauce. Not a person on the political side of the PNC, APNU, or the legal side. They have come publicly to Lowenfield defense in the last 24 to 48 hours.
And he's still in hiding.
That's important for people to note. That is important because, like Charles, who is a lawyer, they must know how serious this matter is. And I can predict this afternoon, gentlemen, none of them will put their name to the legal defense of Lowenfield. I can predict it is some unknown lawyer when Lowenfield is turning up to court the 24th. If by then he's not at CHI, because normally Lowenfield is a man, when he has serious problems, he deliberately checks into CHI when he's faced with problems. And but importantly and seriously, I will predict this afternoon, none of the names that we're accustomed to involving all the machinations to steal an elections by utilizing the court, none of them will be at the courthouse representing Keith Lowenfield. Some lawyer of unknown quantity. Right now, they must be shopping around for that person or persons.
Yeah.
You will not hear Basil Williams as the Attorney General commenting on Lowenfield private criminal charges, even though he was at the CCJ trying to make excuse for Lowenfield. He will not comment on the private criminal charges. You wouldn't hear Royce Ford commenting on it, and your old list, Boston and whoever, you will not hear none of them commenting. Lowenfield lawyer that he was using and that he used during the matters before the CCJ during no confidence motion time, Marcus. That is his lawyer. The wonder thing by now, he would have turned his client in.
Yes.
And that is important for people to note.
Yes.
That is how Congress place operate. You're only important to be utilized for them to gain power, whether in fraud or whether as cannon fodder for them to gain power. Once you run into problem, you're left on your own. Lowenfield right now is on his own. And I suspect he recognizes that. That's the reason why he's ducking and hiding. I suspect that he couldn't present himself to court, among other things, because by that time he had no lawyer to go to the court with. Because I'm sure how this is, he would have made some calls. And he had no takers from the PNC side. None. I can bet anything to anybody that this is the situation he has right now with him. So he is in for some serious times and problems, and GCOM must be prepared to deal with Lowenfield, and if he continues to be a stumbling block, to move him out of the way. Yeah. And if Myers continue to be a stumbling block, move her out of the way. GCOM is authorized and empowered to appoint a chief elections officer to get on with the business of declaring elections.
Certainly.
Importantly also to note, I saw some snippets of the APNU people. They're still talking about the recount exercise when we read declaration and swearing in. I mean, they're still having conversations about recounting votes in the regions. I mean, how many days, gentlemen? Over a month now, we are out of this matter, right? But it shows that the guys, they don't even have anything to present to their followers that is current. It shows how limited and intellectually bankrupt they are. That we're at the stage, whether the PPP Civic, whether the new parties, whether the business community, the international community, the diplomatic people, the CCJ judges, all of them, the CARICOM leaders yesterday at their meeting, handing over, everyone else is at the place where we're discussing a declaration and a swearing of the next president.
Yes.
They're still talking about the convention center.
Yes.
And Joe,
I mean, it is so preposterous, and people continue to follow these guys. Because in the new scheme of things, and as Charles mentioned, I am confident that before the Secretary of State spoke publicly, I am confident via the diplomatic channel, message or messages would have already gone to Granger and Escobar, because that is how the thing functions. When they're to take action, they have diplomatic protocols whereby you're forewarned.
But gentlemen, just for a second, we want to wrap up on that because we're out of time. So I want to flow right into that, Joe, sanctions, and then Charles, you, and then we end.
Yes, the thing is that we're at the place where once they continue to go down the road, and Charles mentioned the last 24 or 48 hours, everybody has been very quiet and silent.
Yes.
You know, Granger stepped back from, he won, but not by a landslide. I never said I won, neither did I say I lost. You know, yes, you know, he's like Pilate now, he's washing his hands from people saying that he was victorious. So we're at a place whereby I believe, and I'm confident that once Wednesday pass with however the CCJ rule, and people must know this, that whatever the CCJ rules, it has no bearing in large measure on the declaration. It has no bearing on the declaration because the fact is, Irfan Ali is already deemed president. All that Lowenfield was to do is to bring back how the seats will be allocated in Parliament. That is what he has already, via the first report, indicate who got the most votes, PPP. And therefore, I want to believe, as silly as they are, I don't think they would, as much as they're being urged. And what is funny is that David Hines, Ben Scott, and Rickford Burke, that lives in America, they're telling them, you go down the road and fight the Americans, let the sanctions go.
They live in well-mature democracies.
I mean, they're far removed, 5,000 miles away. They said, you know, y'all could bear out the sanctions, let the sanctions flow. I mean, so I am of the view, you know, that this, as I have always said, this will only end one way, democracy winning out over dictatorship. And therefore, we can move forward to have Irfan Ali swearing in and install his government so that we can move forward to give service to the Guyanese people based on the platform that we put before them via our manifesto.
Thank you very much, Joe. Charles, in wrapping up, sanctions.
Yeah, just quickly, it's not only sanctions alone on why it is that's important that you see these strong positions being taken by the international community, is that they would never allow a rogue nation to develop on the coast of South America, having seen what happened in Venezuela already. That's number one. Number two, they would never allow a small nation like Guyana, where you've got 750,000 people and you've got a very small army that is not well equipped, to say that again?
Defense force, not even an army.
Yeah, defense force, right. They would never allow this type of disrespect being shown to the international powers and allow that to continue. So it makes no sense what the APNU-AFC are doing, that they believe that they can take this type of posturing and believe that there are no consequences whatsoever, but they will be regardless of the outcome. It just depends on how severe it's going to be in relation to the international community. And I would like to say this as well, that even locally, the sanctions and in particular the penalties and sentencing that is going to happen for all of the people who are involved, it's going to be quite severe as well. And it all depends on how they play their cards at this moment, because there's an easy way to go about doing things, and then there's the way where they're going down at the moment, where they're trying to resist seeing the rightful declaration of the rightful government in this country, and that is the People's Progressive Party. There's nobody in our leadership that is afraid of the PNC. There's nobody in our second tier or third tier, any of our membership. No one is afraid of the PNC. No one is afraid of the APNU-AFC. And any of the machinations that they would have tried to contemplate to see that they get into power. Let's make this very, very clear. The world has changed, but also the People's Progressive Party has changed. The people of this country have changed. And no matter, that's why I started off at the beginning of the program by saying that David Granger will never become president again in this country. he will never be sworn in as the president or as a second-term president. The People's Progressive Party will be sworn in following the CCJ case as the government of this country, and Dr. Irfan Ali will be our president. Make no mistake about it. I want to reassure the viewers that their support is important at this point in time, but also their patience and staying connected to the direction that we give them. The leadership is not going to rest. The stern and strong leadership that you're seeing from the People's Progressive Party being led by the General Secretary of our party, President Jagdeo, and our presidential candidate, Dr. Irfan Ali, we are not going to rest until the People's Progressive Party is sworn in, because that is what the people of our country voted for. And what I can say safely say with 100% assurance is that the people of this country would never allow a dictatorship to happen again, ever in this country.
Thank you very much, Charles. Joe, gentlemen, it's always a pleasure. Continue to keep the fight alive. We're nearing a declaration, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. And we all know that we are focused heavily now on putting this country back together. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you to our viewers this afternoon.
Nice talking to you and Charles. Good afternoon.
Likewise.
Bye now.
Likewise.